Hey friends, welcome back to Black Queer Unapologetic. I'm your host, JoJo, and today we're going to be talking about relationship dynamics part 2. My friend Sean heard last week's episode and felt that he wanted to share his experience with his open relationship, and so we'll be discussing that today, in addition to a little bit of a twist on hookup culture. Let's get into it.
Hey, black, queer, unapologetic. Black, queer, unapologetic. I know who I am, now you know what I'm about. I say the thoughts in my head out loud. Let's get into it, let's pick up the flow though. Brought to you by the one they call JoJo. Black, queer, unapologetic. Black, queer, unapologetic. Let's go.
Sean, how are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. It's Thursday. Let's go home.
Yeah, I'm tired too. So you and I are having this conversation because you listened to the last episode and you felt some kind of way that you felt like you need to share your perspective. And so you threw me completely off track. And so now we need to have this conversation. So this episode is Relationship Dynamics Part 2, but with a little bit of a twist on hookup culture as well.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I didn't feel some type of way. I just felt like I needed to share my story to help continue that conversation about relationship dynamics from a partnered point of view and an open relationship.
What about it made you feel some type of way though?
Oh, like not in a bad way. I think I kind of just felt like that was one perspective of what a relationship could be. Having been with my partner for so long, I feel like I shared a lot of similarities with Brian's story. I think there can be some successes with being open with your partner, and I do want to advocate for open relationships as much as I can. There's such a stigma, or somewhat of a stigma around being open with your partner. I think it's something that's so prevalent in our community, and I don't like tiptoeing around it. I think people always sort of look at me and my partner in a certain lens just because we're open. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay.
Well, I think a good place to start would be like sharing how long you and your partner have been together and how much of that has been open, because I think you're wanting to share a success story of that working versus somebody that's broken up. I think telling the whole story about that can be beneficial to somebody, because if they just like, oh, it's been a success, but like, how has it been a success and what is making it work? How did it even develop to begin with? Personally, as a single person, everybody's relationship is different. Every person that I date is completely different. They want different things. We behave in different ways and we have different deal breakers. I think you should share. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. How do I go about this? I think being in an open relationship, people are always afraid to even talk about it or think about being with someone who's gonna want to be open, or people go into relationships wanting to be open with someone. So my story was always the type of person to believe in, like, okay, you find someone, you fall in love, you spend the rest of your life with this one person, you and your partner have each other physically and emotionally by yourselves, right? When I met my partner, I was 19. We've been together for 13 years. And after 6 years of being together, we decided to open up our relationship. It was really scary at the time. I was against it for many years leading up to it, but I finally just took a chance. It was really rough, but here we are 13 years later. I think we're better than ever. And I'm super happy that we're open now, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. And I just want to advocate for open relationships because so many people are open nowadays, and I question why people might still be afraid to be open as they're thinking about it. I think you kind of just have to figure it out. For me, the dialogue always online with anything related to open relationships is always like, oh, I should be enough for you, or we can live our lives together without having to hook up with other people or whatnot. And I'm just like, true. I mean, that's true. That's a choice that you can have for yourself, but don't disregard the potential or the idea of being open with your partner beyond sex and emotions or emotions.
Mhm. For me, at least like back in the day, you're saying 13 or so. I'm thinking like that's probably like 20. I'm trying to do some math, but like 2013 or something like that. Um, at this point, I remember, and I said this before at another episode, but back then it was one of those things where there was more of a stigma behind it. I do think it is more common. I don't think that they're as common as people think they are. I think people are like a lot more free with the attention that they give and like affection that they show towards other people. But I don't necessarily think that there are a bunch of couples just walking around that are open like that. There are a lot. I will say that, but I just don't think that it's like the majority. One of the things back then, like 2013, I feel like a lot of people, it was one of those things that was kind of not even frowned upon, but just not really talked about. People did it, but they just never discussed it. So I'm curious, how did you guys even come to that conversation to even explore that? Because people never really talked about that. I don't even think I knew that many open couples in 2013. I remember very vividly because it was the year that I got back. I was on a deployment, and then I came home, and it was kind of like coming home and seeing, going to a club or a bar or whatever. And I remember I had hooked up with a couple of couples, and I was like, this is kind of a new thing. I had group sex before, but it was more individuals, like single people hooking up. It wasn't me hooking up with a couple. I feel like at that point, it became more common that I was like a third in a couple's situation. So I'm curious, how did that even how the conversation even came up? Because you were like 24, 25, that's not even being talked about that much.
Yeah.
How did you even know that was an option to do? Like, did you see it on TV? Like, did you hear somebody talk about it? Like, what was the deal?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'll just be open and share my story. So when my partner and I met, we were both very young. I was 19 and he was 20. We were in college. And I think I was a little naive in believing that I only wanted to be with one person, right? What happened was I was hooking up with a bunch of people and I kind of felt like it wasn't going anywhere. I just couldn't connect with someone and I really wanted to settle down and find love. So I found my partner. We talked for a couple of months before we even met in person. When I met him, I was so closeted at the time that I just like thought like I could never be with a man. And I finally met someone I was able to connect with like so emotionally and like spiritually that I was like, okay, like I think I might, consider being in a relationship with someone. And you take your heteronormative ideas of what being in a relationship is, right? You have one person who you fall in love with, you get married, you have a family if you want, etc. And then you kind of just live life with your one partner. So I always held on to that belief, and because that's all I knew, right? Like from watching movies about love and whatnot, rom-coms. And then I met my partner, and then after a few years, everything was great, but I kept wondering about like who's still out there, like sexually, not emotionally. I love my partner. I knew he was the one really early on because I wouldn't have ever even considered being with a man. I wasn't for sure that I wanted to be with one. So here I was, and 3 years into our relationship, I got curious. We actually met on Craigslist.
Another Craigslist couple.
Yeah, so we met on Craigslist, but it wasn't for sex. It was actually for cuddling. I was looking for a cuddle buddy. No, I was in a really weird point in my life. I was 19. I was like being so dramatic. I was kind of just like, okay, like no more hooking up. Let me see if I can get intimate with someone. So I found this guy, and he responded to one of my ads for cuddling. We actually never met up for cuddling because it was during school break. So then he got my number. We started texting. We texted for about 2 to 3 months before we finally met. So, anyway, where was I getting at? What was the question?
You're telling me how you guys got together and how that led to a relationship.
Okay, yeah. So I then, I was 19. I was like, okay, let me go find someone. I didn't get all the hoeing out, essentially. So I got a little curious and I went on Craigslist. I was like, okay, what can I get away with that he wouldn't catch me doing? I ended up meeting up with some guy, and I remember physically shaking, extremely nervous, like, God damn, what the fuck am I doing? I love my partner. Why am I at this random guy's house at 2? So I get to this guy's house and I didn't even touch the guy. He basically just touched me the whole time. And I remember leaving sick to my stomach. Like, what the fuck did I do? From that moment on, I was like, okay, I'm never going to do this again. Fast forward maybe a year later, it got worse. But I ended up going to a party with my partner and we got so fucked up. We went home and he threw me into bed, but he decided to stay up. I was in bed waiting for him to jump into bed, thinking immediately fucked up on the floor. Is he like throwing up or something? But I was just like half awake. And then my gut instinct was just like, okay, what's he doing? So I immediately get up and jump up and I see my partner on the floor on his phone on an app that was clearly not, an app that you should be on at 3 a.m. in the morning when you're fucked up. So I just snatched his phone and it was Squirt. So I don't know if people are familiar with Squirt, but it was like a cruising app back in the day.
Yeah, does that still exist? I don't even know.
I cannot confirm nor deny.
Okay, right. I remember seeing those ads, but I don't know if it's still a thing.
Yeah, but anyway, I got him on there, and then I guess it really tainted my idea of what love was and what a partnership was. From that day on, it was just like, okay, I don't think being in love what it was painted to be in movies. And so, yeah, we worked through it. It took a really long time, but we got through that. From that moment on, it was just like, if he has the capacity to do it, I clearly do as well. Why not be open to the idea of potentially being open? But we didn't even talk about being open for another couple more years.
Where did you learn about open relationships from? How did you even know that that was an option?
I guess I did it. We proved to each other with those initial incidents that we had the capacity to do it. And then eventually we got to a point in our relationship where he had asked me, he sat me down and said, if you want to be with me, you have to know I'm going to eventually want to be with other people sexually. I was so stubborn. I was just like, no, fuck that. That's not what I want. I want to be with you. I should be enough for you.
Mhm.
Why do you want more with someone else? And I couldn't comprehend that. But at the same time, I get to weigh the pros and cons of the situation. This is someone I was so compatible with beyond sex. We had the same interests in music, our day-to-day lives of working out and whatnot. I really didn't want to throw away 3 to 4 years, or at that point, 5 to 6 years of our relationship, just because he was being very open about like, oh, hey, like I'm going to want to fuck other people eventually. So, but to answer your question, I don't think I ever saw it in a movie. I don't think I saw it online anywhere. I think we actually knew, like, we were both very capable of fucking other people. So, like, why are we going to pretend like we're not going to do it or not going to want to do it again?
I feel like people want to do it. I think there's a restraint that people choose to have or don't have in monogamous situations. I've never been in a relationship. All I know is what people I know that are in them tell me about rules and how they engage with each other. I've also been a single person that has slept with a lot of open relationship people who break their rules all the time. I'm like, why are you even telling me that you breaking your rules? I don't need to know that.
But are you like aware that they're breaking the rules and you're still engaging and like encouraging?
No, I find out after the facts. So it's just like, oh, like, I don't know. It's something about, it's kind of dumb. Like, this is the issue that I have. And I don't like, I know I'm fully aware every person that's in a relationship does not behave this way. But I feel like that there is very clear lines that get crossed from a person that's in a relationship, whether it's open or not, to a single person to try to, I don't know if it's to pump me up, make me feel better about myself or whatever it is. Actually, I'll give you an example. This one particular dude, they used to fuck all the time, used to blow his back out all the regular. And he is married now. Before he got married, he was engaged and I would run into him. He would get drunk and tell me, oh, I miss you. My fiance's so boring. I wish we could still do what we used to do. And I'm pretty sure that there's probably some blurring of lines or breaking of rules right there. And also like calling your fiance boring and saying that you should have spent more time with me and all sort of stuff. I feel like there's a very clear line that's being crossed there. I'm not doing anything. I'm just like existing in the space. But then somebody comes to me and says some shit like that, And so I think that there's situations where there are people that are in open relationships that just kind of do some fucking crazy ass shit or be saying stuff that I'm just like, everything that glitter ain't gold. Like, I'm not saying that, people got problems and things like that, but I think that there's issues that people don't address. And that's not just unique to open relationships. I think it happens in monogamous relationships too, because I used to be a homewrecker back in the day. I've seen it on both sides, but I think regardless, like all that is a choice. People choose to say and do whatever they're going to say and do, and it's either right or wrong. People set their own rules, but I've seen people cross the line all the time. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it relates to what Brian talked about in your last episode about like every couple has like terms that they set. You mentioned like negotiation. For me, I think it was more like compromise. So like I kind of got pushed into, being not pushed, but like, I was
No, you say it,
propositioned.
but you say
No,
it.
proposition. He told me, he was like, hey, I just want to let you know down the road, we're monogamous, but eventually I'm going to want to be with other people.
So how soon after that did it? Because now I'm wondering, at what point after that did it flip to something else? Like eventually came at what point?
I think like 2 years later. So
Okay.
it was a little tricky because he was finishing school and I still had a year left. So he went to school in another state. So we were long distance for a year. We had no discussion about like if we were going to be like committed to each other, if we were going to be open during that time frame. But the plan was always, okay, like you finish school, I'm going to go start my next chapter of schooling. And when you finish school, let's decide what we want to do. That's all we talked about. We never talked about like, okay, like when we're apart, like, are you going to fuck other people? No, we never talked about that. I think we kind of avoided it because we had both kind of knew like that like sex was so touchy already at that point that like we were just going to put it off until then. But dead ass, the day he left, he flew out. I hooked up with someone. I was just legitimately waiting for him to leave because at that point, it was kind of like, I'm not getting any older. I know I'm not going to see you for another 3-4 months. I'm going to get it in while I can. And it's not like I was planning it, but it was kind of just like, I knew I wasn't
the same day you planned it.
I wasn't going to be on a leash. So I was like, I'm going to just go online and see what happens. And I mean, the way the gay world works is like, there are people on the other side just waiting to pick you up. So I was like, sure, why not? Give me the attention that I want right now.
I can't stand that shit.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't even attention. I think it was more just like, what can I get? And if I can get it now, why not?
Instant gratification.
There you go. Gratification, but not attention. To be honest, all I did was I hopped in the back of a car and got head. I mean, it's not much attention.
Bitch, that's attention. That's like undivided attention.
It was like, hey, I don't have a car. Can you swing around? I swing by and I'll just hop in the car. We didn't even exchange names or anything. It kind of just like, cool. Like,
I can't stand that shit.
I got it. You got what you want out of me and I got what I wanted. There you go.
I feel like today there are so many people who have these stupid hookup terms where it's like, oh, I'm looking, but I can't host and I can't travel. And I'm like, so you want me to pick you up? Like, you don't got money to call it Uber. You literally have no options at all because you can't leave where you are to go anywhere unless somebody comes to pick you up. That shit sounds so sketchy to me. And even when I was broke and like back in the day when there was no Uber or anything like that, I always found a fucking way. Always.
I mean, that's you though. That was me when I was 19 or 18. I was experimenting, but I didn't have a car. I couldn't host. So I would like walk the like closest like place I could like tell someone. In my case, it was a Walmart. So I would be like, hey, meet me at Walmart. And then they'd pick me up at Walmart. And then I'd get
They picked you up at Walmart. You hoeing in the Walmart parking lot.
Hey. And then around my house, I lived in the burbs. Like all my freaking neighbors when I was 18. Imagine them all seeing me get picked up by a random car. That'd be wild.
I used to walk around the corner if I ever did get picked up.
You used to work around the corner?
I would walk around the corner. You don't need to see who or what. I would walk down the street, walk around the corner, and fuck that shit.
Yeah. You got to do what you got to do, right?
Wait, so you moved away.
Yeah.
And then you got it in. Fast forward, you do this shit. Because I'm curious, years passed because you guys are in school or whatever. Or a year or just like a couple years?
Just a year.
A year. And then after that, that's in the back seat of the car. Did that happen again over the year?
Oh, of course. I was off the leash for a year. It wasn't like I was actively cheating, right? Because I mean, essentially, it was cheating. We never discussed if we were going to be able.
You said you weren't actively cheating, but essentially cheating.
I was online, but I wasn't always messaging people. I would just be online to see who was around. If I needed to get my fix, I would. But I was so busy with school that it never worked out. I would be in school from when I woke up to the evening. My area of study required that I was in studio all night long. So I never had much time to do it over the course of a year, basically on and off. And then come to find a year later, when he came back after his first year of school, he had been faithful. And meanwhile, my whole ass was doing what I could when I could. And then it kind of sparked the whole conversation about, what the fuck are we? But as I had said, that first time that I caught him on squirt, he basically tainted my idea or my belief on what a partnership was.
You blamed him for your behavior.
No, I'm saying that's what enabled me. I basically had to confess that to him. But, come to find a little bit later, he was trifling too.
So he lied?
He didn't lie, he just didn't talk about it, right?
The lie of omission is still a lie. So at least to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you do something and I ask you a question and you go around my question, and it was like, oh, I'm just not going to tell you, so I didn't lie. I feel like that's a lie, at least to me.
Yeah. I mean, if it's your partner and you want to believe, like, oh, like, why are you hiding shit from me? Like, it's not like he was hiding. It was more just like, I'm not ready to tell you. And like, what have you been up to the past year? Let me put you on blast first, right? But he actually was trying to break up with me, and I was like, no way. We've been separate for a year. Did you really expect that in the past year I would be loyal to you? Like, come on, everyone has sexual needs, right? And I remember this time period, like when we were away, I would wake up at like 3 a.m. shaking, like I need a dick.
Oh my God.
I need a dick so bad. And that's kind of why I was like, okay, I'm going to justify it with like, okay, I have needs, right? Looking back, that's terrible, right? It happened. It was such a rough year following that because I was about to finish school and we were like, okay, are we breaking up? Are we going to stay together? That's when we kind of decided, okay, if we're going to stay together, we have to be open. I finished school, flew out there, and then we got engaged. That was kind of what like allowed me to like be okay with like, okay, like he sealed the deal of like I did all this cheating and he still decided to propose to me. I guess he truly does love me. And I decided, if you want to be open, let's do it. That's when we decided to do it. And the rest is history.
Do you think you guys would have been open if you were not separated before, like distance-wise?
Oh, 100%. Like, I think the reality is I've found a partner who is just as much of a hoback as I am.
Oh, do tell.
That's like the best part. I first realized this one day. We were in a car driving by a park and there was this super hot guy running outside. In my mind, I was like, I'm going to pretend I don't see this hot guy. And I look over at my partner and my partner's just staring at this hot guy. And at that time, I was just like, how do I behave? Isn't your partner only supposed to have eyes for you?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So then naturally I asked him, hey, like, why are you staring at that guy? And he's just like, no, I'm not. And I was just like,
okay, then it did.
Sure. Yeah. So then I kind of realized, okay, like your eyes are wandering, my eyes are wandering. We're able to look at other people, but like we're tiptoeing around that because we don't want to offend the other person. So it's kind of like window shopping unintentionally, but you're still looking through the window.
I don't think that's a big deal. Honestly, everybody's human, everybody has eyes. I think it's kind of dumb for somebody to say that another person is not attractive when they clearly are.
Yeah.
You don't have to be drooling over them and drop to your knees or whatever. If somebody is attractive and you visually see them, it's like, okay, yeah, he's cute, whatever. It doesn't have to be a whole thing. Even when I am attracted to people, I don't have to drool all over them just because they're physically appealing.
Yeah. And if you apply that to straight people, they can't even talk to people from the other sex, because their partner would be jealous. Like, why are you standing next to her?
There's gay couples like that too. Like, I've seen it on the lesbian side, I've seen it on the gay male side. Some people are just naturally jealous or territorial and they like to get their way. I'm not saying names, but there are clear examples of people who flirt and all that stuff, but if they see their partner doing it, they instantly intervene.
Yeah. I mean, it's giving like insecurity, if you ask me. You want to believe that your partner only has eyes for you, right? But your mind can wander. You see them interacting with someone on some level that you thought they could only interact with you on, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Did you get jealous?
Hell yeah. I mean, for anyone listening who knows, my partner is a 10. Like, I snatched him up because I was like, oh, yeah, you're fine. So actually, he gets so much attention. Early on, I was very jealous, but I've come to practice compersion. I don't know if you know that word. I heard it on TikTok from a porn star who talked about how you should be happy that your partner is getting attention or your partner is hooking up with A, B, and C. It doesn't mean they love you any less. It doesn't mean that they're looking for something deeper with this person that they're interacting with. So, yeah.
I'm curious because you're in a relationship, you hook up with other people, and you said you have experienced jealousy, like, in terms of with your partner, but I don't know if it's like a recently or a past thing. What is the way in which you experience that? How do you deal with it in your relationship? And I don't even know what would make you jealous, if you can give me an example, because again, every couple has different rules and thresholds for certain things, but what would make you genuinely feel that emotion?
Early in our relationship, when we were first open, like, so when we opened up, we were like, okay, we only play together. So the first person that we ever hooked up with, I found him so attractive, and so did my partner. What made it beautiful was that, like, the guy we brought in was like super equally attracted to both of us. And so you could naturally feel it the way he was engaging with the both of us. And then the next guy, purely just into my partner. And that's when I was kind of just like, oh, wow, like, oh, you're only into my partner. Even though you said online you were into both of us. I couldn't blame the dude, but I wasn't jealous that my partner was interacting with him a certain way. I was jealous that the dude was not into me the same way.
We're getting your attention.
Yeah. And that, sure. But it's not that I was jealous that my partner was getting, or what my partner was doing with this other person. I was like, okay, whatever, go for it. You want to punch this guy in the face, do it. I don't care. But yeah, so that's just like one early incident of like jealousy, or when I finally felt jealous, like he's getting all this attention, but not me. Eventually led to us wanting to be open separately. More recently, my partner has talked about the way that guys will come up to me and dance on me because I'm a pretty good dancer. He had said that some guy had approached me at the club and started dancing on me, and he felt some type of way about it. And he was like, he almost stopped it, but he was like, it's not that deep. Like, let Sean have his fun. That was a month ago. We're 13 years in. So like the jealousy still is happening, but like it's not gonna affect how we see each other, how we love each other. And it's definitely not gonna like push us away from each other or lead to us splitting.
You guys let each other off the leash a little bit.
You've never been in an open relationship. So if you're not open with your partner, what would make you jealous?
That is a good question. I've been single for a really long time, so I have gained a level of confidence in myself. Not to say that I will never get jealous. I think that there are probably things that would. I just don't know what they are at this moment because I haven't felt that in so long. Maybe I am a little bit too comfortable like with the whole being single thing, because like at this point, if you're causing me unnecessary stress and you're not trying to communicate, I will just immediately cut you off. I don't have time for the games. I'm not about to drag a conversation out of you. I'm not going to do any of that. So if that's the case, which I've found happens frequently, is that there is a lack of communication among people, especially when it requires vulnerability and honesty. I'm not going to give the same example that I get like 2 episodes in a row, but I think that if I'm trying to have a conversation with you and you can't give the information and have a vulnerable conversation, for me, that is a requirement for dating. That is a requirement for a relationship. That is a requirement for a friendship. I also believe that there are levels of friendship. So every friend is not going to be able to give you that same level of vulnerability and conversation about certain things, and I'm totally fine with that. That's when you kind of categorize people in your life and decide what it is that you really want out of a person. I know for me, at least from an emotional standpoint, if I'm going to date somebody, they got to be able to do that, because deep conversations are not hard for me like they used to be. If I'm not happy about something, if I'm bothered by something, I'm going to have a conversation with you about it. If you avoid me, if you brush it off, that is a big red flag for me. So, yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. She's done a lot of work on herself. I'm curious what would make me jealous though, because yeah, like I don't know, like I've dated people and I've seen them get attention from other people, and I'm just like, if they like me enough, they'll come back. If they don't, I'm like, fuck it, I'll just go get somebody else. I've never had a problem meeting dudes. It's more getting to the relationship, like making it actually a thing, and that's been the issue.
So say you meet someone and they've got all these other people that they're still talking to. Would you be jealous of that?
I wouldn't be jealous of it. I think it would be more like, oh, okay, like you have your options open, and so now I know what I'm dealing with. I think it would just make me more aware of the situation. I wouldn't be like vindictive about it or like, oh, you need to cut so and so off. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if we get into a situation where I feel like I'm not being prioritized in any way, not to say that I have to be the number one priority, but like I'm competing for your time, I don't compete. I don't do that. So I feel like I come to the table as my best self. I give it my A game. It doesn't matter if it's the date or the bedroom or whatever it is. I try to be very thoughtful, deliberate, and intentional about the things I do with people that I enjoy. If that ain't enough for you, then cut me off. And if you don't cut me off, I'm going to cut you off. I don't have time for that. Having been single for so long and being in my mid-30s has gotten me to a point where I just don't have time for the games. And I'm aware people have rosters. I have my own fucking rosters. I don't need to go and compete for somebody's attention. If you like me enough, then you will prioritize me. Just like if I like somebody enough, I will prioritize them. That's just plain and simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really questioning, how are we going to get JoJo to get jealous?
I'm just unbothered. And I think even if I was jealous, say the initial reaction, let's give it 60 seconds. Then that shit goes out the window. I'm like, all right, well, it is what it is.
If someone comes up and kisses your partner on the cheeks, like that, would it make you feel some type of way?
No, I mean, I kissed some of my friends on the cheek.
Friends, like someone?
No, so that's happened before. I've kissed, like, okay, so say I'm dating a person, but they don't really know the people who I fuck with, right? Like, not fuck with sexually, but just like in general. And then they see me with somebody they haven't seen me with before. That person is just a friend. They don't know that, though. And people have gotten mad at me about that. I don't think anything of it because I think it's stupid. I'm not making out with the person. I'm a very affectionate person as it is. I give bomb hugs. But the kissing on the cheek, I don't think is a big deal. Kissing on the lips, I think it's different. If it was on the cheek, I wouldn't make a big deal out of it. If it was on the lips, then my gears will start turning for me to think like, is there something more to this that I'm not seeing? Like, have they hooked up before? Are they doing something behind the scenes? And if it's somebody that I do know, then I probably wouldn't. You never know, because sometimes people be kissing people they know and then maybe fucking behind closed doors.
Okay, so say your partner kissed someone who ended up being a friend on the lips and then it turned into some whole thing. Would you still be mad about it or be jealous of it?
Like they hooked up?
Like a kiss, like you didn't know him and he was like, oh, we're really close like that. Because I kissed some of my friends on the lips. So if they did that with their friends, would you believe that it was just friendly? Would you
I would say
slide? Or would you be like, no more kissing dudes on the lips? That's not cute.
I would take their word for it, but I'm not stupid. I would keep an eye on it for sure. Because my whole thing is like, it's not what you say, it's what you do. So there's always a telltale sign. I've clocked a bunch of people cheating before other people even knew about it. But I would hope that I have that same ability within my own situations. I have clocked behavior changes, and typically that is a big sign of something going wrong. You know, somebody being unresponsive, leaving you on red, getting back to you later. Changed behavior tells you a lot. Whether it's good or bad, it could be a good thing, change behavior, but also it could be a bad thing.
most likely never a good thing.
You have been in a relationship since fucking Craigslist. So you were looking for cuddles, and I'm curious because you looked through the apps and like you guys were open and all that shit. And so there's still apps now, and they're very different than what they were when they came out. And I think that the intention behind them was different than the 2008, 9, 10s or whatever. Do you think that with the apps and hookup culture, it's made sex less valuable and genuine intimacy harder to find? Because you were just looking for cuddles on Craigslist, allegedly.
Yeah, I swear I could pull up the post if you want the receipts, but
Then you've been
Yeah.
just saved it all these years.
no,
Like framed on the wall.
I gotta log into my Yahoo account and recover all the emails from Craigslist. We talk about this all the time. I'm very intentional on there. For me, the hookup apps are what they're calling dating apps. People always want to complain about how it's garbage on there, right? But you're still on there. But what are you on there for? Most people go on there like it's for attention or for sex. So if I go on there and I tell you I'm on there for sex and you're like, oh, like your partner, why do you want that from me? It doesn't fucking matter. My situation, my relationship status.
Are you always upfront about the fact that you're in a relationship when presenting for sex?
Yeah, well, in general, I present for sex, but I am not.
Like, does your profile? I'm gonna ask you a very specific question.
So go ahead.
So, does your profile say like married or open relationship on it, or is it blank?
Yeah. So it's blank, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I have gotten people who will go out their way to like find fucking excuses or like find hangups in my profile, like, oh, like you're too short. And I had a guy say one time, like, oh, like I don't do partner people or like I don't do married people. Because I think I used to have married and not open because I didn't like the word open. I was still coming to terms with like, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I had married and someone was like, oh, I don't do married people. And I was just like, that's bullshit because like, I know people are fucking my partner and he was clearly advertising that he was married. So I was just like, come up with something better. So I removed anything that could.
Wait, so hold on. Was it the same person or a different person?
Different people, but it very much felt like you were finding some sort of excuse. Like it's not my height, it's not my skin color. If it's not my position, it's gonna be my relationship status. So I've removed everything on the apps that could lead to someone saying like, okay, no thanks because of this.
For the people who are listening, Sean is 4'9".
What? 4'10". No, I'm 5'12". Yeah, I don't advertise it. I don't advertise anything except for my ethnicity because I think that's the most important thing on the apps. People always see my color first, and then they look at my position, and then they look at my pics. That's basically all it is.
Mm-hmm.
You've talked about on previous episodes how people are using the apps with filters that are like, oh, single people only. So I don't even list that because I want to at least make the cut. Like, okay, like, and it depends like what the other person's looking for. So if they're looking for a relationship, I understand you're looking for someone single, but if you're just on there, which most people are just for attention or for hooking up, why are you trying to cast me aside just because I'm partnered?
I'm the single person, so I'm gonna tell you why.
No, go for it.
So, as a single person, I don't discredit or discount open people. I don't care if you're married, whatever, all of that. I don't really care about that. What the problem though that I do have, and this is the experience that I've had, is that when, like as a single person, when I have hooked up with people who are in relationships, their schedules are shit. So because they, they're playing separately, they may be like cohabiting with a partner, they have things planned around their partner, and so their schedules are shitty, and I have to work around your fucking schedule. I don't like that. I don't like feeling like I'm trying to get mine just like you're trying to get yours. You could get yours from your partner, but you're on the app trying to. So if you don't find anything, at least you have somebody at home to get yours from. For me, as a single person, when I get duped into hooking up with somebody or like pursuing somebody that's in a relationship, didn't advertise their situation correctly or accurately, it becomes a situation where I am being beholden to your schedule, and I don't like that. It creates a lot of logistical problems. And I was in a situation like that, which sucks. To this day, I am so mad about it because he was fine as hell. The sex is really good. and he was open with his partner, and I had to find that out after the fact. He would hit me up at the most inconvenient times because of the schedule that he has with his partner. I'm just like, I can't be available at the drop of a dime just because you are available. He's like, oh, can I only do this time, this time? Why can't you be available? Blah, blah, blah. We enjoyed each other's company, but especially at the end, the schedule is not going to work out, unfortunately. And so if I would have knew that beforehand, I probably wouldn't have engaged because it is so sporadic and unreliable. I'm somebody that enjoys having regulars than going to go hook up with random people. Um, and I leave with that too. Like if it's good, the first time like me and that particular guy like hooked up, he was like, "Oh, this is great. Like, give me your number, yada yada." Then it just got weird. That is why I don't like to do it. It's not that I won't do it. It is not my first option.
But you're not, I mean, yeah, so I guess you'll tolerate it to some extent. But like, do you find any value in that? Like, oh, this person's not going to bother me unless they're looking for sex? Because so many people, right? They want my number, or like they want my socials so they can like track me.
It's easier to hit people up. People check their text messages more often than those apps. So like it's just kind of more of a direct way to get to it, which I'm again like I like regulars better than like random. So if you have my number, you can reach me a lot easier than if you're on an app. Like I don't even think I haven't logged into an app and I don't even remember when at this point, but I don't know, there's probably a message there that somebody thinks I'm ignoring them because I didn't respond. But I ain't seen it because I ain't been on there. But they have my number or my Instagram, they could have hit me up.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be those same people who hit me up and you hit them up and they leave me on red anyways. People's priorities differ on a day-to-day basis and people will accommodate you if they want to hook up with you. I don't care if you're partnered or not. If one of my regulars hits me up and like, hey, I want to meet, like I'm very able to be like, no, thank you, not right now, right? Sometimes I hit them up and they just leave me on red and I don't take offense to that. People have their own lives, and I don't assume that people are actively ignoring me. I don't want people saying I'm too busy with his partner and getting it in with his partner to like prioritize me. And that's why when it comes to hookup apps, I do not go online unless I'm actively looking. If you're online looking for attention, please ignore me.
Yeah, I don't like the whole attention thing. I think it's bullshit. It's a lot.
You love attention, don't blame.
I don't like with the last picture posted on my Instagram was from like a year ago. I don't like posing for pictures. I take pictures, I just don't post them. As far as like dating app, I don't take enough pictures that are postable. If you ever go on any app or Instagram and everything is the same angle, it's like from the chest up, everything's a selfie. I would never create a profile that was like that. I would want to show more personality in a profile.
You mean the whole pics?
No. We don't do those.
I mean, I don't know why people want to use that as a hang up. I think like if you're looking for more of like an emotional connection with your partner, like sexually, when you're hooking up to the apps, I get that. But like I always say hooking up with people who are partnered just the best because that means they're actively having sex, which means they're more likely to be good at it. So
that's bullshit. Some people have a lot of bad sex.
I know. I've actually learned that not to be true all the time, but I'd rather bank on that than like messaging or meeting up with some random single guy who's probably only hooked up like 5 times in their lives and they're just awful. So I don't know. Again, like sex is so transactional. Like you find me attractive, I find you attractive. Why do you want to get to know what I do for a living? Like, does that make me better?
It's not even about that though. Like, do you get what I'm saying about the scheduling of it? I highly doubt your schedule is as free as mine when it comes to hooking up because you have somebody that you live with and that is your partner. So like, as far as scheduling that out, and you guys have things that you do together, maybe you guys have plans or whatever. I have my own shit to do. I make my own schedule about what I'm available to do. If I go hook up with somebody that's in a relationship and they're just like, oh, I'm not free until X time. I'm like, no, but I ain't waiting on you. I need the shit now.
We do have that sort of rule in place, right? Like we do not prioritize hooking up with other people before we prioritize each other. And that in the past, we've kind of like we're operating like always on edge. Like, okay, like, oh, when's he gonna want to hook up with the next person? When's he gonna ask me if he could be with the next person? It just didn't feel like healthy being with someone who was like always like where you're always wondering like when the next time they were gonna hook up was. But yeah, the same people who want to get mad about that are the same people who will ignore messages or make up lame excuses for not wanting to meet up with single people. Like, if you really want to hook up with someone, you'd accommodate them.
You make it sound like a hospitality service.
It kind of is, honestly.
Mm. Do you feel like there's stigma around open relationships in queer spaces?
I think the biggest thing, though, is when I meet people, I don't tell them I'm partnered, and they always ask, right? And then I tell them I'm married, and then eventually they meet my
Wait, when you meet people, like, when you, like, is there like a type of meet?
also like
Okay.
friend of a friend, right? So I'll just give you an example of like meeting someone to kickball, which I partake in. I always try to get to know a person first, like a filter check. Like, is this person cool? Are they capable of casually having a conversation and not trying to get in my pants? Then I tell them I'm partnered, and they eventually meet my partner. Most people always jump on him. They're like, this boy's so fun. And you're not one of them, but,
Never was.
but the majority are, right?
Yeah.
And so then people start asking questions like, how long have you been together? Are you guys open? And then that's truly when you see people's true colors. They'll try to get out of you what they think they can because they hear open and they're like, okay, does that mean I can get at both of you or whatever they can? And those are the people that I immediately just toss aside, like, okay, you're garbage. Like, you're just being opportunistic. There's no substance in that. I want people to understand being open is a spectrum. Some people only play together. Some people are only able to kiss other people. But like me and my partner, we do not hook up with friends of friends. Our social circles are so important to us that we do not want to even throw hookups into the mix. So if we've hooked up with you in the past and you've now entered our social circles, that's completely fine. The past is the past, but people need to understand you can't just assume the couple's open. Let me infiltrate. It's just a little you're making assumptions about what two or more people's open relationship is based off of what you think being open is. It's just getting immature, arrogant, ignorant.
Well, everybody has their own rules. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. And I think it depends on each couple. Like, some people, it's like kind of a free for all.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people, it's like, okay, we only do stuff together. Do you have like a set of rules? Like, I mean, you mentioned the social circle thing. Do you have a set of rules that you guys have to abide by?
Basically what I touched on, like, just no friends. My personal rule for me is no friends with friends. I just don't like that dynamic. It's cute, we hooked up, but now we're in the same social circles. I just tend to think that once you've hooked up with someone, they always see you through that lens. We'll be at the bar and they'll come up and touch your ass. I'm just like, not right now. Even if I was single, don't be doing that right now. There's a time and place, right? When we're meeting up with the intentions of hooking up, yeah, that's fine. But we're just socializing. You don't need to come up and touch me like that just because you're horny and you're like the influence. So that's where I'm just, I'm going to keep my hookups separate from my social life because you're not going to disrupt too. I keep those very separate for that reason.
I've never had that problem. I don't know why. Like, there's people that I've hooked up with and I'll see them in the middle of the day. And it's, hey, what's up? It's always been respectful. I've never had somebody try to cross a line with me, even though we've hooked up before. I've had somebody get drunk and blurt that shit out. I'm just like, oh God. But I've never had them treat me any different or anything like that. Like, it's like, oh, hey, how are you? And it's just been very friendly. I don't know if I'm just like fortunate in that way, where somebody doesn't feel like they have like access to me, like sexually at all times, which, consent is sexy. You shouldn't keep your hands to yourself. You don't expect that people are going to welcome your advances all the time.
Yeah. I have a somewhat related story about some incident, and I've told you about this story, but one of my partners, hookups, came up to us while we were at dinner and was being super aggressive, interrupting our personal time. We were having dinner, And he just thought it was cute to come up and be like, "Oh, hey, how you been?" And I'm just like, "Can you get out of here? Like, clearly we're on a date. We're talking, looking at each other. And like, why are you trying to disrupt this? It's just not the time and place." So it's things like that where we have to be very sure that the people we're meeting up with understand, hey, we're partnered. Like, you cannot just approach me in public and think it's socially okay to mix.
Okay, so I am gonna say this. I feel like you're probably one of the only couples that approach it that way. I don't want to call it an extreme. It's more like very specific, where it's like, this is that, the flex you this. We're in a relationship. You stay over there. Not like a friend circle thing. I think that's separate. If somebody happens to be in a friend circle, I think that's a different conversation. But from what I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys are hooking up with anybody and you run into that person, the expectation is that they stay separate from your relationship and your social circles, so they don't be coming up interrupting our couple time, don't just walk up and say hi or anything like that. And I feel like those are just normal people things to do, like, hey, hi, like to address somebody. And I don't know, I mean, I know the story that you're talking about, and I feel like the deeper context of that story, it was a little bit extra. Um, but in general, just somebody addressing you, like saying, hey, what's up? I don't think that's doing the most. It could be a whole lot worse.
Yeah, I agree. The story I shared was very different, where the guy was very disrespectful of the fact that I was married to the person that he was like acted like aggressively hitting on and like wanting to like take that in there. And it was just like, and I had to tell my partner to tell him to fuck off. Like, this dude is being stupid, right? To your point, I'm not saying that we're not going to say hi to like my hookups will see me in public and I'll like, be friendly to them. And so that's kind of our thing too, is we're not actively hooking up with people that we could casually run into when we go out. I mean, chances are we will, but we're not going to turn a cold shoulder to them and be like, "Oh, my hookup's here. Let's leave now."
Go hide in the corner, run downstairs into the shadows. Yeah.
Yeah. But, oh,
What?
I don't know. I feel like there's so much more to talk about. Let's dive even deeper.
What do you want to talk about? Because I'm the single person, and I always tell you don't know shit about being single because you've been married forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know shit about being married because I ain't never been married. That's just my life right now. So I'm just trying to enjoy it the best that I can.
As I was kind of touching on earlier, advocating for open relationships. If there's anyone listening out there and you're in a situation where you're very afraid of even opening up with your partner, just know that I was that way. I was very much by the book. Like, okay, you build a house with someone, you get married, you dive with them in bed, right? I don't know. I just think that I learned through the process. Like, everyone has check boxes. How important is sex to you on that list? If you really want to believe that your partner fucking someone else means that they don't love you or they love you less than you deserve to be loved, I think you really need to question what you're looking for in a partner. I'm not holding that against you, but I do think that sex and love are two separate concepts, right? So a lot of people like to say, I only fuck people I love, or I need to have some sort of deep connection with you sexually to really enjoy it. I think it's two very separate concepts. You can remove emotions from sex and still enjoy it. You can add emotions to sex with someone outside of your partner, and it still can mean nothing in terms of your relationship with your partner. At the end of the day, I'm still going to bed with my partner. He doesn't love me any less. I don't love him any less. He's not going to change the way he treats me or loves me just because he's fucking other people. If the case is that you're somehow now on the back burner and he's not prioritizing you, then yes, we consider what your rules are, but you have to be very secure with your partner. When you do decide to open up, set those rules and be very honest about what you're afraid of. Like, every conversation I have with people who get cheated on or who get propositioned into being in an open relationship, they always say, I should be enough, or I'm afraid he's going to leave me, or they're going to leave me because they find someone else better. If that's the case, you need to communicate that with your partner and let them know that's what you're insecure about. I don't think people who want to open up are trying to find someone better. They're just trying to have fun. It's fun to have sex with other people. unless you're polyamorous, actually looking for love with multiple people. I don't think we're actively looking for someone better on an emotional, spiritual level. It can naturally happen, but I don't think that's the intent of being open. So keep that in consideration when you get positioned or if you're thinking about it.
Okay, I'm gonna preface this by saying I'm not anti-open relationship,
Yeah.
but Sean, let's be real. You know that there are some shady people out there who are sex hungry, who lie, who only do open relationships because they are too greedy to admit that they want to be poly or they want to be single, and they kind of abuse the situation.
Yeah.
And so I think my point is that there are people who do those things, and everybody is not capable of honoring the boundaries of any relationship, whether it be monogamous or open. And there are also people who are not capable of stepping outside of monogamy because they're just not wired that way. Like some people just are wired to connect the sex and the emotion together. So I'm not anti open relationship. I just think that there are people who are not capable of it based on who they are at the core of their person.
I agree 100%, right? So if that's who you are just wired to mix the two. Like you cannot separate emotion from sex, like, but your partner can. Like you've got to at least try to put yourself in their shoes. Like I was saying, like you really got to question what the intent is. Like, are they trying to find someone better, or are they just very interested in hooking up with other people?
But they go both ways because I'm hearing the advocation for the person who can separate the two, but the person who can't. So maybe it's just a mismatch and they need to go find somebody else. I feel like one person should not be convincing the other person to go either way. It should be a joint decision. If I was to do it, that is the only way that I would ever do it, is that if we both came to the conclusion that this is something that we both want at the same time or around the same time. I'm not buying into the business of somebody trying to convince me to do one thing or the other because maybe you're not the right person for me, or maybe we're on different timing or whatever it is. I just don't, like, I've seen those situations where somebody has convinced somebody to do it and then it's blown up in their face because it was not on the correct timing. You both have to be ready and in the same headspace or similar headspace. If you aren't, and one person is pushing it, I've never seen that go the right way. Like, it's not even an ultimatum. It's just like, I don't want to lose you, so I'm just going to do it. And then it ends up being some crazy hot mess.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've seen that happen before, but I don't know. It's tough. You need to really question like what you want to get out of your partner. And if like them being open is a deal breaker, then I'm wanting to be open as a deal breaker, then yeah, like so be it. Break up with them. But like for me, like again, that checklist, like how important is sex on their list and sex on your list, and you really need to question how are we going to make this work. I got propositioned and I wanted to leave so bad because I was never going to accept that. I had to weigh the pros and cons of my relationship and how compatible we really were outside of the bedroom. We were so compatible, and I was not going to throw away 3 to 4 years of my relationship just because he wanted to hook up with other people. What I truly admire are couples who go into a relationship open and they're like very honest and open about that. Because for me in my relationship, the way that my partner propositioned me, like he was like scared like for his life. He was like, my partner is not going to love me or like see me the same anymore because like I'm being my honest self. So when two people come into a relationship and they're able to openly communicate like, hey, I like fucking other people, but I want to figure out how I'm compatible with you beyond that, right? So those people understand sex is just one thing you offer, but I'm trying to get to know you beyond the sex. And those are the people that I look up to because I'm just like, you guys are very mature. You understand that like sex, being open about sex is important to having a healthy relationship. Keep that in mind when you're hooking up with someone in an open relationship. If you meet someone who has a view that doesn't align with yours, you know, it's okay. At least they're able to communicate with you about that. Because like, are you able to communicate back and say, hey, no, like, fuck that. I'm not comfortable with you fucking other people. Most people, they're afraid to miss out on an opportunity, or they're afraid to lose someone, so they just say, okay, never mind, be quiet, like I'm just gonna go with it. And so
Yeah. I really wish people would stand up for themselves more, to be honest. Like, on both ends. Like, if that's something you want, then just say that shit. You know, if it's something that you don't want, you don't have to go along with it.
Yep.
You know, but I wish people would stand up for themselves and like their viewpoints. And I think that's probably the most important thing, is that I don't think there's a right way to do any of this. That's why a lot of people are single. That's why a lot of people have been monogamous and been open and been poly and experimented with a bunch of other things. And I think that there is no right way to be in a relationship. Everybody has their own way. You have to figure out what is going to work for you. And at the end of the day, it is a partnership. Like we were talking about earlier, you know, what would make me jealous. And at this point, I'm just like, if I'm not going to be the pick, then I'm just not the pick. I'm not going to compete for somebody's attention and things like that. Like if I like you, I will give you attention and show you how much I'm into you. But if I ever feel like I'm competing with other people for a spot in your life, I'm not going to do that, because that's already starting on the wrong foot, regardless of whether it would be a monogamous or open or whatever. I'm just like, I'm not a priority. I'm not a factor, any of that. And so my whole thing is, regardless of what I do, I want to be able to build something with somebody. And I find that very hard to do when you can't establish that connection and maintain it.
yeah, and it all just to like communication. Are you able to be honest with your partner?
Honesty is hard to find these days.
Yeah. One other thing I want to touch on is there are people, right? So there's two ends of that spectrum. There are couples who hide from the gay world because they're like, okay, like I don't want
the
temptation of my partner like getting attention or acting on
Those
any
people.
temptations, right? So they isolate themselves and don't have any gay friends. They only interact with straight people, and it becomes like you're hiding yourselves from the temptation. And I hate those relationships so much, because it's kind of like you're living like a fake.
fantasy, fairy tale.
Yeah, like okay,
Yeah.
we love each other, but like if you're emotionally mature enough, you are able to resist temptations, or you're able to like be open and honest about those temptations. Hiding it and removing yourself from the temptations is not the solution. I'd rather you cheat on me and now I get to see the real you. People have fears of their partner finding someone better. Hello, wake up. Your partner has found someone better. You guys are not for each other. Keeping them from that doesn't make them the one for you. It just means you have control of them being the one for you. So that's even worse.
Yeah, I think a big part of seeing who somebody is holistically is seeing how they behave and react in various situations. Everybody doesn't go to bars and clubs. But if they go to an event, they go to a concert, they go out with friends, they go to whatever it is. Like, how do they behave in those different situations? Somebody goes into a social situation and they just become extra thirsty. That might be something that you might need to have a conversation about, you know? There's like trends behind behavior in certain venues, and avoiding them does not change behavior. It just kind of delays the inevitable, because eventually you end up in a situation where they can't control themselves because they're, you know, on the loose now, because they've been so deprived from going into certain situations. I mean, maybe they enjoy being in those situations and then they haven't been in them and now they don't know how to act. It's like a toddler to the playground for the first time,
Yeah.
or something. I don't know. I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
because so your partner propositioned the open situation initially.
Mhm.
So if he was to come to you tomorrow and he says, Sean, this has been fun, but I want us to be monogamous, what would your reaction be? Like, do you think you could do it or no?
I would be like, I'm moving out by. No, I'm kidding. I mean, okay, so like it's happened before, right? It got so bad to the point where we were abusing our privileges. Being in a relationship itself is like a privilege, because you're agreeing with someone else that you're going to compromise part of your wants and needs for them. You have to now take into consideration their wants and needs, and you have to respect it, because that's your part of it, right? Why else are you giving up so much of yourself in consideration of someone else? So that in itself is a privilege. And then when you decide to open up with your partner, that again is a privilege. That's not something that's a given. It's something that you agreed to. So if you want to go and abuse that, that is problematic. We got to a point where we were too focused on the sex, and I was like, okay, we need to get back on track. We're not putting each other first. We need to get back to who we are and why we opened up in the first place, because we loved each other enough that we granted each other privileges to do so. We brought it back in and we were like, okay, let's close it, right? We were on and off, open and close for so many years, and it just got to a point where we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We thought we had an idea of what it meant to be open and like what it meant to be closed. And so to get back to your question about if he were to come to me tomorrow and say, let's close it, I would first question why, what happened overnight. Do you feel like I don't love you anymore or something? I don't see why they would ask that. If you want more attention, say that. You can't just be like, let's close it because I'm not getting enough attention from you. So first question, why? Because that's probably not going to solve any other issues. We've been together for 13 years. Like we've been living together for 13 fucking years, right? So like, what am I doing now that is affecting you? A lot of relationships fail because of money or like issues with family. Like you're not like, driving with people, other people's families or friends. Sometimes it's sex and being open. If we're operating well on a sexual level with other people, what is it that's causing you to want to close up? Would I be closed with them? Yes. But I would say temporarily, like let's figure out why the fuck you want to be closed. I'm not going to be closed forever. The same way you propositioned me to being open, like you sold me on that fantasy, so now you can't take it back. I'm fully on board.
Why not? Why not?
It's sold, it's not turning back. Why not? I don't know. Being in an open relationship with someone like what I love to the core, like I'm my truest self. I'm no longer afraid to want to fuck other people. Like I'm able to like look at someone and be like, you're so fucking gorgeous, but I'm never looking at them thinking, oh, I should date that person or I want to be with that person. I've never had that because I know my partner, like I love them so much and I connect with them on that level. I'm not worried about that.
So you're telling me you never caught an emotional connection with anybody that you fucked up with the entire time that you guys have been together?
I'm capable of it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to leave my partner. How about that?
Does that mean you will?
Because I have a connection with someone, does it mean what I have with my partner was fake or has diminished?
I'm not saying that what you have with your partner was fake, but I feel like it's inevitable at some point. Not that it will happen to everybody, but there is a likelihood that eventually you may find somebody that you emotionally connect with more than just sex. I think there is that intersection where the two overlap. Eventually you might meet somebody where the sex is bomb, they're a cool ass person, you enjoy spending time with them, you're like, fuck, I got a man, I can't be doing this. And, you're open and you go back to it. That actually just happened to me at Beef Dip. So,
What happened? What happened?
No, I met this dude and he was super into me, but he got a whole ass man. That was problematic. But that's not my problem. He's the one that's in the relationship and not me. I don't care to anything about that. That's not my problem.
You really gotta ask though, like how selfish do you want to be?
Okay.
Like in general, like how selfish do you want to be? Like I've been with my partner for 13 years. Do I want to put him in a situation where he now has to think about who I am to him as a partner? If you're not actively looking for that sort of connection with someone, it can't actually happen. There are 8 billion people on this planet. I refuse to believe that my partner is the one and only person that I can fall deeply in love with, right?
Yeah.
So like if my partner were to get in a car accident or somehow pass away overnight, I believe I can still find someone out there. This isn't the only person that I'm capable of falling in love with. So yeah, it can happen. And for me, I was tested with one person that I met, but I don't know. I
always say this shit is dumb luck, and I feel like you got lucky because you were 18 years old and that happened for you. I'm the opposite, and I'm a little bit older than you, so that has not happened for me. And I think people's like, you work on yourself and you do this and that. I'm like, we know people who are shitty ass people that are in relationships where they don't honor their relationships. We also know some really great people that are single. We also know some really shitty people that are single. But I always say it doesn't matter what you do, like meeting a person and falling in love with a person and being in a successful relationship, that's all dumb luck. You got to be in the right place at the right time for that shit to happen. So you just really got to live your life. And I feel like you got lucky in that sense. Not that I'm not trying to talk shit or nothing, but it's just like, that rarely happens to people at a young age. It lasts into your 30s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, just saying.
No, yeah. And we met when we were so young. I'm trying to navigate being in our early 20s, all that temptation while also trying to be committed. It was very hard. And we did some crazy toxic shit. It was bad, but we got through it. And I think people today in their 30s will not tolerate anything that we did. You know what you want from
No,
a partner.
absolutely not.
Yeah. So I understand if people are hesitant to jump into an open relationship with someone their age and around our age in their 30s. You should know what you want at this point. But yeah, as you said, I did get lucky.
Yeah, some people get unlucky and some people get lucky. And I do want to ask you, because I feel like you may have softened your stance a little bit. You and I are very different in the ways that we approach these types of things. You've been in an open relationship and you consider it to be successful. Obviously, you can't share your entire life story in an hour and a half, but I think you are advocating for them because of your personal experiences and you consider that to be a success, whether it, ups and downs and things like that. Do you think that relationships that are open require more or less trust than monogamous ones?
Well, I mean, definitely more trust, right? Like, if you're gonna be open with someone, I trust that you're gonna respect the roles that we have in place, but also that you're not abusing the privilege of finding some sort of emotional or physical connection with someone else.
But isn't that like, I don't know, I want to, because like, I kind of see it as equal. It's a different kind of trust, but it's still trust.
I don't know what trust goes on in monogamous relationship because I'm not the one. The thing that I always frown upon is when couples break up because of cheating. Clearly, one person or maybe both people are cheating, and it doesn't mean that you don't love each other. We have an entire checklist of boxes that we want to like check off, right? Like, is sex really have that much power over your relationship that you can't be open to the idea that like it's just sex, right? Like and also like you have to think about the intent behind hooking up with other people. Like, are you doing it with malice? Are you trying to piss off your partner by fucking their best friend or something? That's fucked up. That's worthy of a breakup. But I don't think couples who have agreed to be open are abusing their privilege like that. When it comes to trust, like I trust that you're not going to do that, right? And then when you're monogamous, I trust that you're not going to go fuck other people. That's how you break trust, right? Someone cheats.
What about lying?
What about it?
What if it's not about sex? What if it's about the lying or covering it up? So, for example, if there's an open couple and they've been open for however long, and one of them is developing an emotional connection with another person and they don't say anything about it. I'm not going to like go into like define like hypothetical rules, but just say that particular thing is not allowed. And they're not saying anything about it. They're not saying like, being open and honest with their partner about having caught feelings for another person. The same thing can happen on the monogamous side where it's like, okay, you cheated, you've had sex. I think the only difference would be, it could be an identical situation. The only difference is that the sex is not allowed, but now there's an emotional connection too. On the open side, the sex was allowed. On the monogamous side, the sex was not allowed. At the end of the day, both of the people who have caught these emotional attachments to another person outside of their relationship are lying about it. So for me, the question would be, what's worse, the cheating or the lying?
Are they lying though? I mean, they're kind of just not saying what they're doing. I don't think that's lying. Lying is saying like, if their partner were to ask who you see and did you like find someone new? Or are you like fucking around with someone beyond sex? And if you explicitly say no, but you actually are, that to me is lying. But like you don't have to, you don't have to explicitly say
question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if it's not brought up, then it's not a problem.
Yeah, in essence, I think that person is allowed to feel that out, whatever it is. It's a privilege to be able to do that. And if you're going to open yourself up emotionally, with someone, that's on you. I think that person should be allowed to explore that. You can connect with someone on an emotional level, and then you do start to question your emotional state with someone else. I don't think they're required to tell you. I think they're allowed to figure that out on their own. Explicitly lying and saying like, "Oh, I'm not doing that, but you are." That's pretty fucked up in my opinion. When it comes to hooking up while you're in a monogamous relationship, I don't think that's lying as well. That's just cheating.
That sounds like a don't ask, don't tell policy.
It is.
I don't like that.
At what point does it become not lying? Or what do you want? When you open up in a relationship, you have to be very aware of what your fears are, and you have to communicate that. Like, I'm afraid you're going to go find someone better and like fall in love.
I think my communication standards have gotten completely out of control because I would respect somebody more if they came to me and just told me. If they came to me and told me like, hey, and like had a direct, respectful conversation with me, I could then like swallow the battery acid that I want to like fucking throw on them and just have an adult conversation about it. When people don't say anything and they just like hide shit and sweep it under the rug, like for me, that's a big problem. I don't know where I get that from. Actually, something did happen to me when I was younger. I was in another relationship and I had asked somebody, I didn't ask the direct question. I asked questions around the topic. And instead of telling me the situation, they just chose not to tell me. They were talking to this other person. And I was like, did you like meet anybody there? No, they didn't meet anybody there because they already knew the person. So there was all this other stuff that happened or whatever. I didn't ask the right questions, so you didn't give me the information. But if they would have told me like from jump, I would have been probably not pissed at all. I would have been sad about it. But because I had already tried to start a conversation about it and I didn't ask the right questions and they didn't volunteer the information, I was pissed.
There's ways to dodge the question and get away with it, but you got to ask 20 questions if you need to.
Fuck that.
Yeah, like maybe get down to the core of what you're really trying to ask. Like, are you fucking other people? Are you trying to connect with someone else?
I feel like I would have more respect for somebody if they would just be upfront with me. If I don't have to drag information out of you, I can respect you because you respect me enough to just tell me rather than me having to go fishing the information.
Yeah, but I mean, they're probably still figuring it out, right? Like some people might take 2 months, some people might take 10 years. Think about all like the gay dudes are like fucking around behind their wives' backs and they have like 5 kids. They're never going to be able to accept that, right? So like, are they lying or are they hiding? I think they're just hiding, but they're lying to themselves that they're gay. But like, if the wife isn't asking explicitly, are you gay? Are you cheating? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know, like there's trust there that she has with this guy, but that she doesn't know is gay, but I don't think it's lying unless you're explicitly deceiving someone.
I think it is a trust violation, though. If you don't want to call it lying, it's a violation of trust because I'm asking you, I'm just like, okay, you're just not going to tell me. Like, if I don't ask the right question, well, you know, it's like, go fucking play 20 questions or, you know, the Riddler up in here. Yeah. And if I don't ask the right question, I'm not going to get a honest answer.
Yeah. But I mean, open or not, if that's what you're insecure about, you need to be very upfront about it. Like that.
No, I tell people straight up, that's my biggest thing. If I feel like I'm being bullshitted, you're done. I don't open monogamous, whatever. If I feel like I'm being bullshitted, that's one thing I cannot handle. Do not insult my intelligence. I feel like I do know when things are off. I might not know exactly what's going on, but I'm gonna ask questions. I mentioned I don't have an issue with having tough conversations with people. And I try to not come across as an asshole when I'm having that conversation. If you don't feel comfortable having a conversation with me, then maybe I'm not the right person for you to be with because you can't even have a conversation with me. But I think at a certain point, it's like, at what point do the nerves get the better of you where you just don't say anything at all? Because if you can't talk to me at all, that's a problem.
Yeah, and then I think it's also an indication that maybe they don't love you as much as they claim. It's they are in love with you. Like if you're hiding who you are from your partner, you're not being your true self. I think that in itself is a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Did we cover enough? Or
I think that's good. You know, we talked about trust. We talked about your journey. I disagree with you on some shit.
Not really. We talked about jealousy. We talked about the stigma of being in an open relationship.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the poll of my Instagram story, and it did say more people wanted monogamy than other relationships. So I think they are common, but they're not as common as people might think.
Yeah. So back to the point of why I wanted to come on here and talk about it. As long as you're communicating, I would rather you be honest and upfront about wanting to fuck other people than hiding who you are. To me, that's even more fucked up. Like, you can't be your true self with me when I'm being my true self to you. If you're scared, you communicate that. If you don't want to do it, you just say no. You walk away. But it is a compromise, and you can set rules. You can be like, like only once a year or whatever you need to do.
A yearly hall pass.
Yeah, but like you cannot. Your partner has showed you, this is me on a platter. I'm being so vulnerable. Do it back. So, unless like they're just someone who's like, as you mentioned it, like they're just a fucking pig and they're just trying to take advantage of someone. Be open, but like also be exclusive with someone, for selfish, careless reasons. But yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for having a conversation with me, Shawnee.
Thank you for arguing with me this whole time.
I have not been arguing with you. I think we have different perspectives about these things. I'm coming from a way different place than you. We have very opposite experiences, for sure.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big piece of why we see things very differently.
Yeah, you definitely lean more monogamous, and I definitely am now, like, full-fledged. Like, I support people who are open. I wish straight people would be open because I'm tired of listening to people rant about their partners cheating. Like, do they still love you? Do they want to build a house with you? Do they want to raise a family with you? My partner wakes up and he tucks me in. I mean, he fixes me in bed before he leaves and all that stuff. He's always thinking of me, like, what does Sean want to eat? Like, he's putting me into consideration in everything that he does on a day-to-day basis. And if he wants to fuck other people on top of that, go ahead. Like, my husband loves me and I love him equally. So
he's gonna repeat this part over and over again.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, you have to learn to be very honest. I want to share a story. Just the other week, I woke up and my husband was in bed with me and he like wraps his arms around me and he said, "Please don't ever leave me." I was like, "Why are you being so vulnerable?" I think it was just a fear of his, but we've gone so far beyond the fears of being cheated on. That morning, he was just like, "I love you so much. Don't ever leave me. I'm so honest with you." That's what he meant. That's what we talked about. I'm not saying being open will lead to that, but it's just one example of how you can be really open with your partner. Honest with your partner.
If you find the right person.
If you find the right person, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise, don't do it.
Which is based on luck. You don't make it happen.
No, don't force it to happen because that is a whole nother problem.
For sure.
And there you have it. Everybody does what they need to do to make their relationship successful. At the end of the day, I think every person needs to realize what they want, what they need, and do what they need to do to make their situation as successful as possible. As always, stay Black, stay queer, and if you are neither, please always stay unapologetic. See you next time. Bye.